Hey, yeah. When we met last month, um, I realized, like I mentioned, that there are different perspectives on uh young types, on kind of how people how experts talk about young types. And I talked about I identify like three areas, sort of the clinical aspect, or where you're looking at behavior, the handwriting aspect, and then the psychometric, the Myers-Briggs type indicator stuff. And what I realized, like, um uh and the reason, like, for those that were here last month, the reason I move away from the type letters to using function attitudes is because it gives you a way to uh, be sharing all of those, kind of jumping between the different perspectives of how people assess young types. So that was what I wanted for us to share what our perspective is, because there's also what I might call the popular perspective. And I have to give you a little story first, okay? So one of my brothers, uh, he's uh, he's an introverted thinking type. And for those who know these types, they'll really resonate with this. So he, after his first marriage that didn't go so well, and after a time, he used the Myers-Briggs type to find his next partner. And they did it. And it's kind of amazing. So he's an I let's see, ISTP, and she is an INFP. Now, they didn't do any assessments or anything, but he's an introverted thinker, so he's very aware of the characteristics, and he just identified everything. And I think they're pretty right on. And he said to her that he would, I think they've been together for like 20 or 30 years now. Okay. Well, he said to her that uh he would probably be hurt her feelings, you know, and yeah, that was because he understood that much about the thinking and the feeling. Um, but gosh, I forget the rest of what he said because it was really sweet. But I'll come back with it because I'll talk to him this weekend and tell him. I'm sure he'll be kind of a little surprised that I shared this. But it's kind of amazing. And I wanted to share that primarily because this isn't an expert, but type had a big impact on his life and how they got together. So um there are what we're going to do at the beginning is to share, but I have there are two very um there are two people that I want to share first. Okay, and this is Carol Shumate and Jens. I'm. Can you pronounce your last name, Jens? I'm always messing it up.
Okay.
Winderleff.
Win Winderleff, yes.
Winderleff. Okay,
Winderleff, yeah.
and I'd like Jens, if you could share first about your
Your
perspective on the young types, how you use them, and the research you did with the Jungian, well, with young Carl Jung and his inner circle.
Yes. Okay.
I should, if you would introduce yourself to kind of a little bit. I think
Okay.
you're from. Denmark, is that right?
I'm from Denmark, yes.
Denmark,
Uh,
yes.
yeah. And I'm an educated graphologist, and I'm a sort of artist also, and I'm a building engineer. And I was the leader of the Danish solar energy program in many years. And I have translated the Jungian typology, also from psychologischen Typen, from German to Danish. And I have written a book about the first generation of Jungians. That is Jung himself and his circle. That is about 80 people, men and women. And my focus was and the tool was graphology primary, and naturally also the biographies, but the tools was primarily graphology, and the my purpose was to show what were these people as human beings primarily. Everyone knows their skills as psychologists and philosophers and so on, but I wanted using graphology to show, to see and show what sort of people they were. And yeah, I know. Can you see this book now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And um,
And it's about it can.
Is he
It,
showing, excuse me, Victor or
Yeah.
Jens, are you showing something on the screen? Because
yes.
I
oh,
can't
you
see
need
it.
to do you open your video? I think you need to open your video.
I thought I had.
Let
Oh,
me see
yes.
if I can help you with that.
Uh,
Do you see the menu underneath
boy,
to the
I,
left? The
It should say start video.
yeah.
There
There's
he is.
okay, there we go. Okay,
there we
yes,
go. Okay,
great.
here we go. This is a book,
Okay.
I
and it
can't
has.
see it.
You
Lift
see
it
it?
up just a little bit.
I
Can you
can't
see
see
it?
it either.
I can't
I
see it.
Got it right.
Have you shared the screen?
Oh, let me let me see if I can pin it. Well,
He
if
has
you
to
pin it,
share. He has
yeah.
to
He
share
has
his
to
screen.
He's holding it up to the camera.
Ah,
Oh well, none of us are shown. Only the host and co-host. Everybody else is not. So he has to turn his video on too on Zoom.
Can you
Okay,
see
well,
it now?
I can see it now, but I
yeah,
can't read it. Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
I can't
Okay.
see it.
It's
we
Sue, you can't see it?
no,
No.
I can't either.
I can't
Thank you.
either.
Here, let me. I've got a picture of it. Let me see if I can show
okay.
you.
You have a PDF of
Yeah,
yes.
let me see if where I put that. But yeah. There we go. Jens. Okay. I think, oh yeah, I have the website. So let me pull that up and share the
Yeah,
website
yeah.
when that comes up.
But I can continue telling that
Yeah, go ahead.
it contains 80 analyses of the circle, and it is illustrated with 110 handwriting. And you can buy the book for 24 euros by direct emailing me, and I'm sure that Victor would
Yeah,
send you my email if you're interested.
okay.
So
Can,
yeah, here
can
we
you
have
see
it.
that now?
Ah,
Thank
This is
you.
right.
the
Okay,
this
thank you.
this is the
Yeah.
website that talks about it, and then I'll put your email into a handout to everybody. I'll send who would like to see this. And yeah, I had a question, Jens.
Yeah.
Like were you working with the Jungian types when you were like working with the characterology of each of the people of Carl Jung and his circle?
Yes, yes, sure I was.
So I'm curious about how you might, I guess what I'm wondering if how it's similar or different to, like, let me see if I can get this straight. I'm aware that that within graphology there had been a tradition of working with Jungian types from well, by students of Jung and even by psychotherapists that were colleagues of Carl Jung in Switzerland. And then
Yes.
so there's like this whole history related to that use that's independent from what Myers and Briggs were working with and their assessment approach.
Well, yes, but I don't use Maya Briggs very much because I find it a little complicated, superfluous, complicated, because they use 4 letters to characterize, and this 4 letter,
Yes.
G for judgment and P for perceivance. It's not necessary. In fact, you can describe all the 16 different combination of types with only 3 letters, using the classical terms. That is attitude, that is introversion or extroversion, and the second letter should be the main function, the first function, and the third letter should be the auxiliary or the second function. That would give all you need. All you need is the 16. So, and I think one of the weakness of Maya Briggs is that looking at these 4 letters, it is not possible to directly see what is the main function.
Right.
You have to think and dedicate. You have to think it out, and so it's not necessary. But anyway, I know why Maya Briggs has done that, because focusing so much of the extrovert behavior, that's what is that's what really to be seen in this G and P. That corresponds to what normal people would notice when they are looking at people. But if you go to the issue psychological, you don't need all that. You can go directly to the main function and the second function.
Yeah. So
So
you
that
call this, oh, I'm sorry, you call this the classic
the classic Jungian typology, yes.
Yeah.
But I sometimes I also use this DP dimension, which, as you know, is already present in the classical Jungian typology, because thinking and feeling are, per definition, in Jungian typology, per definition, rational, a sort of judgment, and intuition and sensing is, per definition, also perceivance. So there's no difference there. But there's also another thing that you have to notice if you come from the German language. I translated the Jungian typology from German, and that is in English it is called sensation, but it's a good word if we are speaking about extrovert sensation. But if we are speaking about introvert sensation, it's not directly sensation as such, because what you are perceiving is inner reality in a character, for example, and you don't sense it. But if you use German words, you call it I should find the German word. Well, I have just forgot it, but if you look at the German words, sensation would be called Wahrnehmung, and that's not the right word. Jung use Empfindung, and that should be translated like reality perceivings, something like that. And that could describe that reality perceivings could happen in an inner way and an outer way. So sensation is too much the outer way, and therefore it's not a very good word. But if everyone understands it, it's okay.
Yeah.
So that was my approach to the Jungian circle. But suddenly, very soon, there came a big problem. If you look at all these handwritings, even if they are mature, many of these people in the circle are mature people. And that means that they have a high degree of integration of the second auxiliary function. So you have a mix about the main function and the second function. And the second function in the Myers-Briggs system has the opposite attitude to the main function. So what you see is a mix about introversion and extroversion, and the first function and the second function. And it could be very, very difficult if you are looking at mature people to see what is what. For example, one of the biographers has said that Jung wasn't an introverted, intuitive thinker, as he himself thought, or many things. She said, from his life, I would judge it to be an extrovert feeling type, and he wasn't. But he ended so as a young. He started as a professor type, a young, ambitious man, but he ended as a very useful man, an adventurer, in fact, and he has developed a very, very fine extrovert feeling. So someone went wrong there and said, okay, he was in reality he was a feeling type. He wasn't, but that was his anima integration had shown him his secondary function, and he had developed that. And it could be very, very difficult for a graphologist to see it's what number one and number two. So you have to live with such a mix in many of these people in the circle.
Yes. This is sort of you're supporting what I mentioned last month to folks, that the more mature person, because especially because of their development and individuation,
Yes.
it becomes more complicated to identify in the handwriting, like what the dominant function is, what the auxiliary function is, and how that, because and the like you're saying,
in my book, for some of the persons in my study, I had the opportunity to follow them from the youth to the very old age.
Yes.
For example, Jung, the first letter I have from him when he is 23 years, and he is clearly a introverted thinking type. And in the end, he is more like an extroverted feeling type. And I have a lot of stages in all these 60 years.
Yeah.
In that case, you have a better chance to see what was the original inborn type
Mhm.
and what was the development result.
By
But
having a kind of a history of handwritings at different periods in his life.
yes, yes,
Yes.
you have to have the stages if you
Mhm.
should be more sure about the innate psychological type. And
Yeah.
I couldn't do that from only 5 or 6 of the circle.
Mhm.
So that was complicated.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you've joined us, and I wanted to have you, Carol, speak a little bit, but I need to tell you that um, so Carol's Shumate wrote a book that is like introduces it's something that I feel like is the easiest way to learn the function attitude approach to how to describe the type,
Yeah.
and that allows for these various perspectives instead of using the Myers-Briggs type letters.
Yeah, yeah.
And um, and I have her her book is cited in the handout, in
Okay.
the notes handout
Okay. It would.
on references. Now I've put um, Jen's in the chat. You'll find a link to the book Jen's wrote. Am I saying
Okay.
your name
It will be
correct?
interesting to read it.
Yeah, and
So
and
my
we'll,
research basic is the French graphologist Taillard.
oh
She has
yeah.
written. Anya Taillard. She has
Mhm.
written about psychological types and how you could find the threads in the handwriting.
Mhm.
And that is classical Jungian
Okay, that's
graphology.
what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. I've
Yes.
kind of looked at some of her stuff, but yeah. So Carol, would you share a little bit um ab about may like especially now that you've kind of heard this other perspective. That's why I wanted Jens to go first. Um, Now, Carol, I understand you also have been an instructor with the Pacifica Graduate School, which is sort of like a clinical training for, uh, if I'm getting it clear, sort of for people interested in applying Jungian psychology that's not maybe the traditional analytical psychology out of Zurich, more of the, maybe you could share.
Yeah, Pacifica Graduate Institute of Psychology is really teaching scholarship in depth psychology.
Mhm.
So if you want to be a Jungian analyst, you go to a Jung Institute, and there are, of course, Jung Institutes in this country as well as in Zurich, and I have taught at those too. But at Pacifica, I taught the course in psychological types for 10 years. And you're right, Jens, it's difficult to assess type with people who are mature or adults. And most of my graduate students were, mid-career professionals, psychotherapists. But it is certainly possible to do. And the way I approach it is I ask them about their childhood. So I am looking for, as you are, that innate psychological type. Now, it doesn't, so that tells you where the person began from. My book, which is called Projection and Personality Development, is about how we mature out of that starting point seedling of our innate type. And that was something I also taught my students. Here's the trajectory of development for your particular type. Here's what you look for. Here's what you move toward. And Is there anything else you want to know, Victor?
The let me see. The I introduced in our first meeting last month about how to look at judging and perceiving first, rather than the introversion and extroversion, and then going to using your basically identifying your type that's in the appendix of your book, going through, and you'll see that in the instructions. I think I might have sent, oh no, I don't think I sent that to you. Let me pull it up. Let's see, here we go. So I don't know if I,
Carol, can I?
there we go.
Okay.
Yes, you have a question?
Yes,
go ahead.
do you use handwriting to do your assessments, or is that a piece of it?
No, I don't know anything about handwriting, so
Oh, okay.
you guys can teach me on that score.
Yeah, here is, oh, I'm sorry. So identify, to find your Jungian type, this is right out of your appendix of that book you just mentioned, which I've cited in the handouts. And the so identifying whether it's a J-type characteristics, the judging characteristics or the perceiving characteristics. And then
Victor, I can't see all I see is it says instruction guide PDF. I don't see the actual stuff.
Okay, I was afraid of that. Let me go back and change. Okay. So here it is. Now can you see?
Yes.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
But
Okay.
it's very small. Can you make it larger?
Mine's
We can
large.
all make it
Mine-
larger.
Mine's large.
Mine's
You
large.
can make it large on your own screen. Expand your own screen.
Yeah, and everyone should have a handout of this too, that they can open on their screen or open up for themselves. But anyway, Carol, so, and I've connected actually the J type, just for your information, the judging type and the perceiving type fit very nicely into a graphological concept of what's called regularity writing versus
Amazing.
irregularity. Can you see immediately?
I can. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's so, I mean, it's like you don't even have to know anything about graphology to see immediately this kind of distinction. See, so I'm looking at understanding, how to describe the description of these two, and then being aware of how that would look in handwriting to support it. And then we go down to the specific function attitudes related to the perceiving type, and which are on the right side under the perceiving type. If it fits with that, then you're looking at these descriptions. And I'm reviewing here because I know we went through this and it's all very new. So just to recognize that once you've identified the judging, whether the person is a judging or a perceiving type or for yourself, then you're looking at the types that are under the column for for example, if it's more perceiving type, then you look for the 4 function attitudes under there, and which are the 2 that are closest related to you
Mhm,
or to the
mhm.
person. And if it's the other way, you look at the 4 on the left column, and which are the 2 that are the closest related. Okay, so that's what we were looking at. And you know, basically we'll be going over this because this is sort of like, I was figuring we're going to go over the behavior, which is, I call it the clinical approach, which I relate to what you've put together here. And then we'll go with the handwriting approach, and then we'll go with the psychometric approach. And we can see how they're similar and how they're different, but for me, knowing all of them actually makes it very easy for me to deal with complicated, mature pieces. It's really helped me. So anyway,
Mhm.
anything you want to comment about or want to explain? Maybe I didn't quite get this right either, how I understood your appendix.
I mean, I can say that physical characteristics show psychological type. So body language, facial animation, and so forth. And these are things that I have noticed myself. I don't think this is in print anywhere else except in my book. But it's not foolproof. You cannot, there are always exceptions. So it's the sort of thing that can help you when if you are assessing type in another person. It can help you if you can see these, because each type has a profile and looks a certain way. And really what happens is that the functions really blend together in a very unique way for each of the 16 types. But this is a way to begin to notice. You can begin to notice that somebody is an extroverted intuition type because they talk a lot and they gesture a lot. So there's the verbosity to them that you don't get with other types. And that sort of rounded gestures. And then with an introverted intuitive type, especially with feeling, that would be INFJ, the gestures are more symmetrical and quite deliberate, I would say. Not accidental. But with an extroverted intuitive type, you're going to get a lot of motion, a lot of use of the room, a kind of extension, of the personal space, and movement, a lot of movement.
And I'd like to point out, Carol, what she's describing, this is what is clinical about it, because this is what a therapist observes about the person that's sitting in front of them. And yeah, that's kind of why I call it coming out of that clinical approach. What the power of this is that you can be sitting on a park bench and watching the people, doing the people watching thing that we all like to do. And you can be guessing what their type is.
Mhm.
Turn that into something very interesting.
Yes, I'm pretty good at guessing somebody's type within a few minutes of meeting them.
Yeah.
And I know that because if the individual knows his or her own type, he will tell me, "Oh, how did you know? How did you do that?"
Mhm.
And this is how you've captured it.
Yeah.
A good part of it, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there
Can
are
I have a
also
can I
mental
have a question too?
attributes. Sure.
Go ahead.
Can I have a question to Carol?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, just from body language, you have seen Donald Trump many times on TV.
Yes.
Would you call him an extroverted, intuitive feeling type, for example?
No, and I'll tell you, I believe he's an extroverted sensate type,
Sensation.
ESTP. But it's of course very difficult to tell with public figures because they have a persona that they like to project. And
Why I mention intuition? That is because he has a strong a lot of energy in possibilities, and
a
some of
lot of
his
energy and what?
he has a lot of energy, psychic energy in possibilities. That
And
could
in
point to
possibilities.
in possibilities,
Well,
and
sometimes,
many
yeah,
many of his political attempts hasn't shown reality. So
that's true.
that could point to intuition, extrovert intuition.
But he really doesn't have any ideas. So intuition types are living in the realm of ideas. And he is completely absorbed by the physical surface of things. He cares very much what he looks like, what other people look like. He cares about money and tangible, the tangible world. And he's very impatient with ideas. So this is not just my assessment. It happens to be my assessment. And I did write an article on this, but it was the assessment of the majority of conferees at a psychological type conference back in, I want to say, 2019 or maybe 2018. I can't quite remember. But the majority of conferees thought he had ESTP preferences. Now, with a public figure, it's very hard to know. But ESTPs, they're individuals who they use their second function, introverted thinking, a lot in business, and it makes them very good negotiators. And Donald Trump sees himself as a good negotiator. I think he doesn't have very good development of his judging function. I don't think he has a lot of judgment. I think he's mostly perceiving. But I do think that type profile fits him. Now, ESTPs very often they will like to go into areas like professional areas. If they're women, they like to go into performance arts. They like they're sort of natural performers.
Mhm.
If they're men, they may very often be drawn to becoming anything that has speed. They're very impatient. So they like fast cars, you know, fast vehicles of any sort. And they themselves are very, you know, they move back and forth from one thing to another, skipping around from one thought to another, which can make them come across as a little ditzy, a little less than focused. But it's just that extroverted sensing is so fast, it perceives the external world. It's monitoring the external world all the time, and that's changing all the time. And because of that, they develop this incredible speed because of practicing the use of that function over and over. They become very speedy. So, is that, what do you think, Jens? Are you convinced or not?
I'm thinking, I wanted to bring up the piece about the 4 functions that of the stack that I don't think I got to last month, but the idea that we have the dominant function, like here is the first function, and then we have the second auxiliary, the auxiliary function. But then there's also the tertiary function and the inferior function. And of course, it's sort of like how much these are developed or the converse, how little they have been developed in us. Like the inferior function is called the inferior function because it's usually hardly ever developed. And what that means by developed is that it remains unconscious. Okay, so I'm bringing this up because in what you're saying about the if he's a sensate, extroverted sensate, there's still the intuition is still there, but unconscious. And the more unconscious this guy is, the more that force, you know, that influence of what's unconscious is coming out. And that's when the Jungian approach moves into talking about the archetypal forces.
Yes.
Yeah. See, so
Yeah.
this is a level of complexity that moves into being able to understand the unconscious. I didn't mean to go into it so quickly, but this but what I want to point out is that we can take this as simply identifying what I call the temperament, which is the dominant function that was there earliest in our life. We can see how we develop, how the person develops. We can see if they develop even to the tertiary, you know, like what I believe, yeah. And then we can also be talking about whenever they're so, how would I say, impulsive, they don't think about what they're doing. They don't have any self-reflection going on, any, for example, undeveloped introverted thinking, like you're saying. Then there's forces that are coming out of them that have more to do with what's the unconscious in them. And that's where we start moving into the archetypal psychology stuff. Does that, I don't know if I'm saying that very well. With you here, Carol, it's great.
No, you're absolutely right. I
Okay.
mean, what happens is when function is down low in the inferior position or even lower, completely in the unconscious,
Mhm.
it tends to manifest negatively. And some people live entirely out of their inferior function or out of their unconscious functions
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the way you would recognize that is there's a lot of negativity in their personality.
Mhm. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much. Um, I hope you feel, you know, these we're going to be meeting every 2 weeks on Thursday at the same time until October 9th. After, the October 9th will be the end of this series. And feel free, I'll send you the link for those, because the link for the second Thursday or the fourth Thursday, it's the second and the fourth Thursday, is different than for the second Thursday. So I'll make sure you have this link and stuff. And
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to give everybody a chance to ask some questions here, because we're really blessed. I find this amazing. You know, here we have, just for me to recap, okay? We have the classic type coming out of Jung and Teilhard, the students of Jung who were graphologists, working with identifying type in the handwriting. And we have sort of the development, the clinical approach to type that Carol Shumate has worked with and has shared. And I want to tell you that I have another person. I don't think she's been able to show up, but what we haven't seen is the psychometric. But this is just amazing. If you have specific questions for any of us, I think because there's a lot to unpack here. I
Yes.
didn't want to lose it. You know? We can be going over this session, and going over these ideas here for the next 3 or 4 months.
Sure. May I please ask Jens, I missed understanding, you were mentioning there is 3 possibilities how to assess a personality. You mentioned the first one being the attitude, and the second and third, I misheard. I didn't understand correctly. Would you mind please explaining again or telling us?
Oh, yes. I mean, if you
Thank you kindly. Thank you so much.
yeah, if you look at the Myers-Briggs 16 types,
Yes.
you can get to the same result, the same 16 types from the classical Jungian psychology, using the first letter would be the attitude, E or I for extroversion or introversion. The second letter should be the main function, the first function, the dominant function. And the third letter should be the second function. If you use these 3 letters, you have 16 combination, which corresponds exactly to Myers-Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to go, you don't have to start with J and P. Even it's a good way to go into the type, but you don't have to start there. I start with introversion and extroversion when I'm looking at the handwriting. That I got in my eyes directly, is this an introverted or extroverted person?
Mhm.
And the next thing I go for is the main function. And the next is for the second function. And then I have the type, one of the 16 types.
And would it be possible that one individual is kind of introversion and extroversion at the same time, kind of?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And that comes when in the Myers-Briggs system, you have per definition that the second function has the opposite attitude to the first function. And you very often see in developed persons that the first function and the second function are almost equal developed. That means you have a 50-50 person in terms of introversion and extroversion. And that's typical for people passing 50 years, that if you take a Myers-Briggs test, you'll see it's, for example, 55% extroversion and 45 introversion. It has equalized with the years and the development. That's very normal, I think. And that makes it very difficult for graphologists to detect if you have handwriting for elder people.
So,
Are you? May I ask? Are you a graphologist yourself?
Sorry, what was the question?
Are you a graphologist yourself?
A thriving one on my way.
Okay.
I'm a visual artist.
So I wanted to jump in here and show a different configuration of what of these two columns. Okay. We mentioned last week a way of showing, or last month, about like what a function attitude is placing, identifying the introversion or extroversion directly to the function itself. And that every function, all of the 4 functions in the stack, you know, that a person has, the auxiliary like Jen was saying, the dominant function has a is extroverted or introverted, and then the auxiliary function has its introversion or extroverted. So the function itself is related, has the valence is related to the function itself. And that's what Carol's shows this way of presenting it in her book.
Yes.
And the here, what I'm wanting to show you down here.
Yeah. I have a comment there.
Yes.
If as a preparedness to this meeting, I tried to go down in the original literature from Jung, and I even asked artificial intelligence about it. You said they are very advanced now. They can discuss conceptual matters too. And if you go back to the psychologische Typen from 1921, that's what the year when Jung wrote his work. You can't find precisely a concept that the auxiliary function has the opposite attitude. You can't find it. So this is one of Myers-Briggs concepts.
Yes.
But according to Jung, sometimes you could have the same attitude to the auxiliary function as to the main function. Not always, but sometimes. So you have, I'm not, so far as I could see from the answer from Demony I used, Jung himself, in his old days, he took some distance to Myers-Briggs in that respect. It's good to know.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jung did say in psychological types that the auxiliary function is different in every way from the dominant function. And most psychologists have interpreted that to mean it's different in kind. In other words, if the dominant is thinking, then it would be feeling.
Yes.
Or, excuse me, if it's perception, then it would be judging. If it's a perceiving function, then the second function would be a judging function. So
Yes,
different
yes.
in kind that way, and also
Yes.
different in attitude. So if the dominant function is introverted, the auxiliary function is extroverted. You're right, he didn't say specifically, but he did say it's different in every respect. And if you look at the model of the psyche that he was trying to create, he was showing that the psyche is a self-regulating mechanism so that it has these oppositions or compensations constantly balancing. Now, it doesn't mean that we won't necessarily find somebody who's a double introvert or a double extrovert, but that generally speaking, you need the balance of both extroversion and introversion.
I want to say something here, okay? This is what thrilled me most about about Jungian type, was that there were these experts in different areas and, you know, like working with it, that that like make it a something that's not in the past, but that like continues to drive a deeper understanding of personality. And you know, this includes, like, Carol, I understand, like with the scholarship aspect of Jung that's going on at Pacifica, that goes back to like, what did Carl Jung really mean, type of thing too. There's those studies that are going on, you know. So
Yeah.
and
I just want to
yeah,
add one more thing.
yeah.
You know, the amazing thing about Jung is that he was so anti-dogmatic. He was so you know, he felt that human beings go astray when they get locked into a single position. And so it makes it very hard to talk about his work, because you have to constantly qualify it and say, well, maybe most of the time this is true, but there could be times when it's not true.
And what the part that we're not talking about right now is the psychometric aspect, which I'll bring in at the right time. But the psychometric side of it, like I used to think it was you know, like it destroyed the clinical, or it messed up the Carl Jung's approach, but it actually adds something in its own way. But basically what it adds is it brings the type into a discussion of how the psychometric assessment is being done. And so it actually opens, I mean, it's very serious. It's a whole thing, a whole area in itself. But I just want to mention it because the what it
Can I ask a question of
Yeah.
Carol before we
Yes.
go?
Yes, definitely. But I'll just say that
Carol,
we'll add that later. Okay, go.
Carol, in handwriting analysis, and I know that's not your thing, but we always qualify that this is how this person is at this moment in time. And it's never absolute. If we get the handwriting when they're very upset, if we get the handwriting on a different day, a different year, different time of life, all that we expect the handwriting to be different. And I think that's what I'm not as familiar with Jung as you are. I think that's what you're saying about Jung, that he expects these variations, that when he gives a type, it's not an absolute. It's kind of at that moment, and you expect variation. And of course, you expect people to change, or you hope they will change somewhat throughout their lives. Is that what you were trying to explain, Carol?
Yeah, I was hoping that I wasn't coming across as being too adamant on one thing or another, because that's exactly right. It's an approximation. There are things we can learn about the human mind, but we can never be completely sure because we can't see inside another human's mind. We can barely even see inside our own.
Right.
And Judy,
Yeah.
I think of this as it's a framework, that it's the philosophy term would be deductive. In other words, it's a theoretical framework that helps you to think about what's going on.
Yes. Yes.
See, and we kind of were taught. I mentioned that last month, but to have that, to think about it not as a absolute like statistical accuracy thing, or even the handwriting is more like inductive. It's more of like it's observed. It's what is. But
Yeah, but I think
but the
that
Jung is a theoretical thing. It's a framework. Yeah.
I think that when we think of introversion and extroversion, I think everyone is more introverted in certain situations and more extroverted in some situations. So it depends on which
Sure.
situation is dominant at the
Sure.
time. That part of.
Yes. Let's see
I
how
have
much.
I have a comment also to
Yes.
the typology. I think the Jungian typology is the only typology. There are many typologies, but it is the only typology which is dynamic. The concept of a main function and a third and fourth function, that means the possibility to develop.
Yeah.
You have a direction to your weak functions. That means here your potential for development lies. And that's the only typology, as far as I know, which have this development dynamic aspect.
So I
It's
would
very
assume, I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I would assume that, you start with a typology and you work with how the person changes all the time, that you don't stick to one way of looking at them. I don't know. I don't know if that's how you work, Anne. I mean, I know Anne has a her own way of working with people, but
Yeah,
it's hard for me to think of a person as one type. That's what I'm trying to
oh
say.
yeah. And actually that's why I was presenting that thing, is that we all have all functions. This is the thing. All functions are in us. Look, think of the function. The function is not like a personality type. It's a process it's a psychic process. In other words, it's a type of intelligence. The feeling is about emotional intelligence and connection with people. The thinking is obvious. Okay, it's kind of like it's that where you're pulling things together, that there's a particular cognitive thing going on. The
Yeah.
sensing has its own. I noticed that the sensing, my son, I believe, is a sensing. They have this, the extroverted sensing have this, like a space, an understanding of space that lets them build things, you
Yes,
know?
that's a
And
good that's a good way to look at it.
yeah,
You can, if you take your two hands, your arms,
yeah,
they are not your personality. That is functions,
yes,
and
yeah,
the one is better. The one is better than the other.
mhm,
But you have the possibility to train them
exactly,
both. That's
exactly.
a good.
So we have all of the potential of using all of these functions, but we're lazy, whatever it is. We're more comfortable with what we've learned already. See, so what's developed is where we keep going. It's our comfort area, and where so that's why we're not really developing fully. But what I understood, Carl Jung's whole approach, his reason for putting this together was first to develop himself. He felt limited, so he wanted to develop himself, and then to support others in growing and developing as much as they can by moving into other areas. And this was the genius was to recognize, if you're a dominant thinking like he was, you cannot do the same thing you're doing and become efficient in feeling,
Exactly.
you know?
Why not?
And that's what he called, that's what's called that bipolarity. You can't do both. You have to, you move one way has its function, the other way has its function.
You
Yeah,
can
that's
alternate.
Yeah.
You
Right,
can alternate.
Yes, you can. You can alternate.
Yes, you have to
Yes.
adapt.
Yeah. This is
like
this is
that.
good. We're usually close.
Victor, I'm going to have to go. I'm
I-
sorry. I
That's
loved
fine.
this. I loved meeting you, Jens. And by the way, I put a link to my article on Trump's type in the
Awesome.
chat in case you're interested. And I'm definitely going to look at your book. Very
Thank you.
excited about that. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Victor, for doing
Thank
this.
you.
Thanks, Carol,
Okay.
for showing up.
Thank-
Well, I'll send you
Okay.
the link for next Thursday, and I know you've got a lot going on, so
Okay. So
you can pop in and out as you like.
oh,
Thank
thank you all.
you.
I'm
Thank
leaving
you,
too.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Thank you, Victor.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
I'll send you a link for next Thursday, Jens. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we usually go an hour. Any of you who would like to be a little longer, I'll go over the worksheet so you can be practicing it if you like. Maybe not more than another 30 minutes for any of those who would like. And Lawrence, I don't think I don't have your email.
Oh,
So I don't think I have you have these handouts. And if you
yes,
could
I got what you sent with the link. I know.
on
Uh,
okay, I think there was one. I gave one handout there.
I got this with
Right.
the
So that's the
yes,
kind of like the outline of what
yes,
we're learning, what we're gonna.
yes. But I can put my email in the chat if you want.
Yes, that would be great. And I'll send you these other documents we're going to be looking at, these other two.
Okay.
The instruction document and the assessment document. So I'll jump in on that. Let me oh, I wanted to show this page first. The instruction document we'll look at first. And real quickly here. Can everyone see that? So first of all, yeah, I'm kind of blown away. Carol, Carol designed this. This is exactly, see, I took this from her. So this guide. So is everyone understanding about like you're going to identify if the person matches the description on the left or the description on the right? Like that's step one. And I put here, decide whether you are a J type or a P type, the judging or perceiving, okay? And I say here by description, which is this, or by handwriting, which is this. Okay, so the regularity fits with the judging type, and regularity in handwriting, irregularity fits with the perceiving type. Okay, and I just threw this in because these are like more detailed characteristics in the handwriting related to judging and perceiving. But the thing is you can look at the gestalt, okay? And you use these more detailed things when it becomes difficult to determine, is it more judging or more perceiving? And the piece here is, and you have to understand, in the psychometric assessment, it isn't about determining like it's not a trait that you say, how much of that trait do you have? It's about, are you leaning more towards this aspect, this way, or are you leaning more towards this way? That's how, and so what you're looking at in the handwriting is, if it's hard to tell, you're looking at a very slight, if you have to, very slight variation between the two characteristics or the two types. Okay, and that'll throw them, that's the process for the assessment. Does that make sense? It doesn't have, let me see if for example, well, we'll do the assessment types next week. Like, I've got a bunch of handwriting samples. So then once you've got that step one, step two is you select the two functions that are the best fit. So if you've got perceiving in column 2, then you look through the 4 functions, the specific 4 functions. But if you notice, these 4 functions have this, I need to correct this. This SE means extroverted sensing. NE means extroverted intuition. Okay. And then you have introverted thinking and introverted feeling. Does anyone see a pattern there? This is it. The perceiving type is defined by what's called the irrational function, the function of sensing or intuition, is going to be extroverted.
Right.
Okay, and remember, so you've got these 2 positions, dominant and auxiliary. Let me jump down there. Dominant and auxiliary position. These are the 2 we're identifying. Don't worry about the others. Okay, so you're going to look for one of them. One of them is going to be like, if one of them's extroverted, the other is introverted, and vice versa. See? So do you see how this is working?
Yeah.
The perceiving type, you're going to have one, probably you're going to have one of these, and you're going to have one of these. See? But like, this is designed for people that are like just introduced to it, so they don't even have to know that. They just read through the 4 things and they see which one is close, which are the 2 that are closest. You do the same thing on this other side. Once, if you've decided that it's more judging, more on the judging side, based upon these characteristics up here, then you go through these 4. And what do you notice about them? Look at the, okay, here we have sensing, introverted sensing, introverted intuition. extroverted thinking, extroverted feeling. If you get this, you're going to have the whole thing. You don't need to worry about 16 personalities. Just these 4. And divided into these 2 groups. So can anyone tell me what is going on here on the judging side? With these functions, there's going to be 2 functions, one in the dominant position and one in the auxiliary supporting position. Okay, I'll show you. Here, it's feeling and thinking that are extroverted. That's what it is. J refers to what's called the rational functions, and those rational functions are thinking and feeling. And P refers to the irrational functions, and those irrational functions are sensing and intuition. And so what determines whether it's a J, what determines these characteristics up here, all of these characteristics for a P type, it doesn't matter if you're introverted. In other words, if you're a dominant introvert, you can still be a P type. And that's because that part that's introverted is thinking and or feeling, and that part that's extroverted is sensing or intuition. Okay, so that would mean, like, my brother is a dominant introverted thinking, and and he's got an auxiliary extroverted sensing. Where would he fall? Here. Extroverted sensing, introverted thinking. But his thinking is dominant. His introverted thinking is dominant, so that makes him a dominant introvert. See, that was why I always started with, is it introverted or extroverted? And that's way too confusing, because the introverted personality, you don't see most of what's going on with that introverted person. What you see is that extroverted function that's active for them, that they're using. The extroverted function is what shows up in the personality. That's what shows up. And that's what you see. And that's why introverts are so hard. You know, they may appear extroverted. Well, that's the part that's extroverted is their auxiliary, their supporting side. Is that making sense? This is very powerful. I gave you this instruction process so you can practice it. You can practice it on handwriting. You can practice it with people you know, using these characteristics and identifying them. So I just want to show this part, and I've written it up here at the top, that there are 4 functions, 2 irrational kind, the sensing and intuition, and 2 rational kind, the feeling and thinking. And they can be oriented either inwardly or outwardly, with a possibility of 8 function attitudes, 4 oriented out or oriented inward, which would be these for the thinking, feeling, sensing, intuition, all introverted. 4 oriented outward, which would be these. And so these 8 function attitudes can be divided into 4 judging type possibilities, which is this, what we just looked at. and 4 perceiving type possibilities. So this is the key part here, is to know, to relate these 4 possibilities with the judging type of personality, which is about the extroverted rational feeling or thinking. And these 4 perceiving type possibilities with the irrational, with the perceiving. You see, so I kind of summarize it there. And here's another way of looking at it. So here's the extroverted folks, functions over here. Here is the introverted functions over here on the left, okay? And with the P type, you look across the upper horizon, and those are the 4. And with the J type, you look at the southern horizon, and they're those 4. I came up with this the other day. Isn't that genius? I went through a lot of renditions before I finally got this. But so this summarizes it all right there, that the that P type, which ones are extroverted, and it's just reversed. See, the rational down here in the judging are the ones that are extroverted, and the irrational up here, sensing and intuition, are extroverted in the perceiving. Does anyone have questions or want to, or comments on this? I can only think of like 4 things at most, and 2 things are even better. And to have just 2 things to think about at a time helps me make, really gives me clarity in how to place this. And it has led me to be able to quickly identify things. And then once I had this concept, then to apply it to the handwriting, where there's like a lot of indicators. That's a whole nother thing. We'll go into the handwriting later, because there's a lot of characteristics, but there's a simple way to be looking at how to identify type in handwriting. But this concept is the thinking process behind coming to an assessment quickly. Oh, that's what I found. And then here at the bottom is like a description of the combination. Remember, you have 1 rational and 1, they were talking about 1 rational and 1 irrational. That's the supporting each other. So you're going to have 1 rational and 1 irrational in the dominant and auxiliary positions. And so it gives you the 4 different combinations for that, and describes what like a sensing thinking is, a sensing feeling, an intuition thinking, and an intuition feeling. That's it. That's it. Then you just have to like identify introversion and extroversion in it. This simplicity, that Jung types become extremely complex, you can see, but this simplicity keeps it like step by step for me. So any questions on that? Let me show you the assessment piece real quick here. And this instruction thing is for you to be able to have to practice. And feel free to email me if you have questions and stuff like that, especially as you're trying to apply it. It only makes sense when you, by doing it, by trying it. You know, it's kind of, this is personality assessment, only makes sense when you're trying to do it. So let's see, I wanted to show you the assessment form. And I basically just took this combination. So like you can use this, print this off. Oh, I'm sorry. I opened it up and forgot to, here we go. There we go. Yeah. So you can use this to help you kind of think about things for an individual. And all you're needing for this practice, you know, the instructions you have so far is just, you're going to think about one of these goes in the first position and one of them goes in the second position. The first position is the one that's most dominant. And that's kind of like, you can usually figure out that part by, if you think they're more dominant, like the last thing you think about is, are they overall more extroverted generally or more introverted? And then you look at your function attitude, and you can put that function into the dominant that's that it comes up. And then the other one will go in the auxiliary. Is that making sense, guys? And you can just like have this print off a page to doodle, you know, to it always kind of helps me to have, I know it's kind of big, but it's sort of like a, you can be thinking about, okay, let's see, is it perceiving? Does perceiving, these would be the perceiving ones, and or is it in the judging, and these would be the judging ones, and then you put them in 1 and 2, the 2 you come up with. Okay, and then you can kind of check that by looking at those 4 things that show the 2 combinations, you know, which is like a check about, okay, I got these 2. Does this kind of describe what I'm getting at on that instruction form? Now, I have this too, and this is the thing. These are the 16 personalities. You don't have to worry about this when you got these 4 things down. You figure out these 4 things, it's going to be a piece of cake or pie, a nice little pie. And so that's why I show here, it's easier for me to think of these things like Jen was saying, it's not you know, I agree, this Myers-Briggs type, ISTJ, ISFJ, it's complicated. I have to think about it several different ways to understand what's going on. Whereas I say, okay, this is a dominant introverted sensing and auxiliary extroverted thinking. That's it. And so once I'm learning this way of thinking about it, you'll find it's useful to be able to translate that into the Myers-Briggs letters, which you don't have to learn because here they are. You find once you got the dominant and auxiliary, you look through here to find that combination, and I've given you the Myers-Briggs letters to make you really look smart. So that's why I have these 2 kind of here. Okay, that's what I wanted to go through for today. So you could be working with this, and we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. And let's see, at the bottom of the notes, let me, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. I want to show you something on the, at the bottom of the agenda. Oh, wait a second. I just want to show you this real quick because, okay. So if you go to the bottom, here, I have the schedule. Oh, that's right, through October 9th. So you can put that on your calendar. And I put at the top that our meetings for like today and then on the 26th of June. That's 2 weeks from today. Okay. And let's see. That's pretty much it. Is all of these things will be, you can look over. These are sort of things I think are important for us to learn next. I wanted to take advantage of these two very very significant people in their areas of type, of Jung type, to you know, to get their input, and it really fit in. And also next week I want to hear from each person your experience with type, what your experience is. But I thought this was just really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have any questions or any?
No.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, yes, Debbie.
We were talking about Trump, and it seems to me that the signature and the text, you know, one is more angular and one is more rounded, but I think they vary on all the variables.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, judger versus perceiver and all that.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he's an introvert, but on the other ones, I think it varies.
Yeah. I've read a number of things around around Jungian type of Trump. And he's, in a way, he's very complex, and in a way he's very simple. And the part of the thing is that if you look at his, you know, what shocks me, and I was thinking about this the other week, Debbie, his handwriting is more controlled and artificial than his signature. And that's the opposite of what is normally done. Normally, people have the signature be something that's like doesn't show who they are. It shows how they want people to see them. But his signature actually shows more about how he really is, because of that. Well, it has to do with, he really shows his violence, his abusiveness in his signature. And in his writing, he's controlling it. He's making it pompous and authoritarian, really. See, maybe you see the anger, there's resentment and stuff like that, but not that violence that he's showing in his signature. And I find that, like, he turns it upside down. It's like, you know, in his, he's hiding things and then he's revealing them in an odd way at a strange time, you know? I don't know what all that means. I think part of the problem with Trump is that he is so unconscious. And that actually brings up one person was writing about how they believe that he is so, how he was raised, his father didn't like, you know, was so against this self-reflection stuff, and him too, that he avoided developing his introverted thinking and went straight to the tertiary function, which was extroverted feeling. Now think about that. See, because his auxiliary, if his auxiliary is introverted thinking, dominant, remember, dominant extroverted sensing, auxiliary is going to be the rational, it's going to be introverted. So you have introverted thinking. Then you go across this to the third level. Let me open that up real quick to show you. The third, the tertiary, let's see. Yeah. And the tertiary, okay. Huh, it's not sharing. There we go.
See, to me, his signature is more thinking.
Yes.
Because it's angular.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And then the body of the writing is more rounded
and
feeling.
Yes, yes.
So in a way, he's a master of covering the spectrum, except for introversion.
So yeah, this person was writing that they felt like he developed his extroverted feeling, which is the tertiary function, and his introverted thinking never really developed. It was stunted. Okay. And so he has that extroverted feeling with extroverted sensing, which is what makes him so attractive to so many people. See that?
Say that again.
Extroverted sensing is his dominant.
Right.
Extroverted feeling is his tertiary, number 3. And that kind of goes along with how it's the people recognize that he's primarily extremely extroverted. So extroverted, there's no reflection, there's no self-reflection. It's all surface. Yeah. See, so I kind of think that the person that was describing this, I saw it in one of, I have a copy of that article. I'll maybe put it together, but we're talking at a level like Debbie, you bring up things before the time. This is after you get these basics from this, you know, like how to identify the the dominant and auxiliary. Then we can start looking at how we identify tertiary and inferior. And then we can begin to talk about these complex things. See?
Well, what sparked it was, and I forget her name. What was the name of the psychologist?
Carol Shumate.
Okay, yeah. When she said Trump is a perceiver, and to me, the signature is not perceiving.
Yeah.
Oh.
To me,
okay.
the signature is judging.
So what she meant by perceiver has to do with sensing. See, the extroverted sensing relates to the concept of perceiving. Do you see what I'm saying? When she said he was a perceiver, she was referring to that he's a dominant extroverted sensing type.
Yes, but
Okay.
we don't see that in his signature or handwriting. They look more like a judging type, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's weird. I mean,
And I believe that that's because he's developed his tertiary function,
okay.
you know? Yeah.
Okay.
And this is why it's complex.
Mm.
What you're seeing in the handwriting is the active function.
Okay. Okay.
You see?
Yes, I
It
understand.
becomes very complex.
Mm. Okay.
And that's why I kind of go with Jens, you know, like how he works with the handwriting is different than how we're working with the clinical observation.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this is a thing. Look at this. We haven't even approached yet, like we've used maybe some of the symbolism, but we haven't approached how the Myers-Briggs type indicator, what is actually being measured there.
Mm.
It has very little to do with the function.
Oh, okay.
And that's why it's kind of confusing,
Mm.
because it's not really, it has to do with preferences. It's a psychometric measurement of preferences. And so that's a whole nother thing. And so if you're trying to place one on top of the other, it's not going to fit.
Mm.
You have to kind of recognize that each of these approaches, it has an assessment philosophy behind them.
Okay.
You know? Yeah. And then the practice field and stuff, which is why if we learn about all of them, but in a way that we can respect the way each of the methods, then you have a powerful thing to kind of check yourself. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. But that's for later. You know,
Yeah.
we start with the observation, Carol Shumate's approach, and then we'll work with the handwriting approach, and we'll see how they're similar and different. And after we have that, we can be looking at the psychometric approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you spell Carol's last name?
It's on the handout at the very bottom where I
Oh,
show
okay, great.
references. I give her book reference. Yeah. And
Yeah, it was really nice that those guys showed up.
oh, I was so I sent them an invitation, but I was like and I know, I mean, Carol does a lot of things, so I can't I'm just amazed how she was able to, she must have gotten, I must have said something that piqued her interest. Yeah, let's see.
Now, Victor, next week is Power of the Pen.
Yes, next Thursday is Power of the Pen. Oh, I forgot to mention, that's okay. I'll send out a thing. But yeah, the chapter is that Ornado's on the margins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It should be really interesting. I was reading that today. It's a good introductory. It's a good one for introductory, you know, for someone who's first learning about graphology. But I was telling her that how do you put it? Those of us that have been working with this a long time, there's always more, you know. So you never know where the discussion's going to go. But I'm trying to invite, you know, people I know that are kind of curious about handwriting analysis and want to learn, you know, begin to learn a little bit, because this would be really, this is a good chapter for that. A good, essay. Okay, are you guys good?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much.
It's a lot.
And,
It's a lot.
yes. And,
But
and
I
so,
yeah, this was a really like a gold mine that
mm,
showed up. So
yes.
we'll talk about it more. I know there's more to unpack from what they were sharing. But you get the main idea, you know, that it's not controversy, but there's different perspectives.
Mm,
It's cool.
yes. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you very much, and
Yeah.
bye.
You take care.